Okay, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. It's David Schmidt. So tonight, actually, you are going to get a sneak peek at one of the brain maps that was performed by Dr. Chevalier using a new type of EEG technology, and you'll be seeing for yourself just how dramatic that change was in the brain in only 3 weeks and 6 weeks of using X39. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I think you're going to find the product training very, very interesting this evening. Okay, so of course, for those of you that are new, we are a science-based company, and this is the science section of the website. So the way that you get there is you go to the products button at the top and just scroll down and click on science. So it's easy enough. And some of the things that we cover in this section of the website are things like different patents that we've gotten. I finished out the year with 94 patents and another 20 or so that are pending. We also have studies that have been featured, such as research that we've done on X39. We list our published studies, and then there's many, many scientific papers. This section on LifeWave research are studies that we didn't publish, so we could get them out quickly. And we have over 80 clinical studies, actually, that we have done over the past 18 years or so. So one of the, thought what might be kind of interesting, since we were talking about brain mapping last week, is that we start off and actually go back in time to 2006. And that's when we released our carnosine patch. And in 2011, Tom and Helen Budzinski, they were married, and they were interested in doing a clinical study on the use of carnosine to reverse age-related cognitive decline. Now, before we get into this study and some of the reasons for this and so forth, first, a general question. At what age do you think people start to decline in their mental health? In other words, our ability to remember things, the speed at which we process information, our reaction time. When does the brain begin to decline in these capacities? Well, the answer might surprise you, and I promise that this is going to be the only bad news I'm going to give you this evening. So here's an article that was published in the Neurobiology of Aging. It's a manuscript by Dr. Timothy Salthouse, and we can see that the conclusion that he came to by looking at various studies is that they come to the conclusion that age-related cognitive decline begins in healthy adults as early as your 20s. So this is rather shocking, because I think the general thought might be in the public, well, you know, people start to lose their memory maybe in their 50s or their 60s. You know, we think of it maybe in that kind of terms, but actually here there's a number of reasons why people start to decline in their ability to process information as early as their 20s. And what this tells us is that we need to be paying attention to first the foundation of our health so we can preserve our brain function. So what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is, you know, are you getting at least 7 or 8 hours of sleep each evening? If you're sleeping less than 6 hours, your body can accumulate something called a beta amyloid 2 protein. This is common in people with Alzheimer's disease. So meaning if you're sleeping less than 6 hours a night, you make yourself more prone to Alzheimer's. So we need to get more sleep, and plus there's many good reasons to want to sleep. Secondly, diet. Now, one of the things that happens as we age is that the brain begins to shrink. And our need for the essential fatty acid omega-3 DHA goes up. And fish like salmon are rich in EPA and DHA, so you can certainly get this naturally, or you can supplement with algae oil or with fish oil. But getting enough healthy fats in the diet and getting all of your micronutrients are an important part of helping to prevent cognitive decline relative to normal aging. The third thing is going to be exercise. Regular exercise improves circulation, and as a result is going to improve the delivery of oxygen, vital nutrients, and detoxification pathways in the brain. So getting exercise regularly is important. Plus, exercise is going to turn on genes which are associated with health and longevity. So let's say we're doing all of these things. We know we're still going to age. Our body's still going to break down. So is there anything else that we can do to protect the health and the function of the brain? And it turns out that there is. So let's go back over to this study. Now, carnosine, I often refer to this as a miracle nutrient that everybody should take, but most people are unaware of. And that's because carnosine has so many remarkable benefits. Now, first thing, of course, is that carnosine is an antioxidant. It's naturally occurring in the human body. It's difficult to get from your diet. The body will take amino acids and make carnosine. And the levels of carnosine in our body, not surprisingly, decline with age. Now, carnosine is going to be stored in the muscle tissue, in the heart, and in the brain. And that should tell you a lot about its function. So in prior studies that we had done with the carnosine patch, we looked at its effects on athleticism. So could the carnosine patch improve strength and stamina and flexibility? And the answer is yes. We tested that in clinical studies with Dr. Lisa Tully. In other studies, we saw here doing electrointerstitial scanning, we showed that using the carnosine patch for 30 days had a beneficial effect on improving the function of the organs in the body. So Dr. Tom and Helen Budzinski had seen some clinical data on the use of carnosine as a nutrient to improve the function of the brain. And they wanted to see, well, would LifeWave's carnosine patch have that ability? So they set up this study. And again, you can just get this in the science section of the website. And by the way, just a brief note on Dr. Budzinski. He had developed the inertial guidance system for the SR-71. He had worked at Skunk Works as a scientist, so he was very, very well known. He passed away a few years ago, but he was very well known in the U.S. as a prominent scientist, and we were very lucky to have the opportunity to work with him. Really, really great guy, too. So in any case, they established this study, and you can see it was a pretty good-sized study, 20 people in the treatment group and 20 people as a control. The other thing that they wanted to look at was the function of the heart. How would that respond to the carnosine patch? And of course, the main purpose is what's going to happen with long-term and short-term memory, the speed at which people process information, reaction time, and other measures of cognitive function. So we can skip down here and we can go to the results section and discussion. And the bottom line on this study is that the carnosine patch did achieve statistical significance at improvement in cognitive function. So carnosine patch is a good way to help support the overall health and function of the brain. Also, what they found in this study is that the carnosine patch could produce a relaxation effect on the heart and reduce stress. So that obviously would be very, very valuable. So this course was done 10 years ago. Technology changes, and at this point in the history of our company, people are very, very interested in the X39 patch. So would the X39 patch show any type of improvement in brain function? Let's take a look at that. So the world authority on copper peptide, because he was the one that discovered it and he's been researching it now for more than 45 years, is Dr. Loren Picard. So you could just simply do a Google search on GHKCU, otherwise known as copper peptide, and you would see many of the studies that Dr. Picard has published. Dr. Picard has looked at medical applications for copper peptide, cosmetic applications, and this particular case, going back to 2012, Dr. Picard wanted to find out, is it possible that copper peptide could play a role in the health and function of the brain? Now, why would he come to this conclusion and be interested in studying this? We know copper peptide is stored in the skin. Copper peptide is found in the blood, the urine, the saliva. That's found just about everywhere in the body. And of course, any LifeWaver knows that copper peptide activates the stem cells. So what would happen now if we elevated copper peptide in people that were older? Would it have an effect on the brain? So this is an interesting study. And the first thing that I'm going to draw your attention to is the ability of copper peptide. And by the way, when I say copper peptide, that is GHKCU. They're one and the same thing. Copper peptide will function as an antioxidant, and it also has anti-inflammatory properties. So when we look at degenerative conditions in the human body and how the human body ages, one of the things that we see is that there is a decrease in the concentration of antioxidants and an increase in inflammatory chemicals. And this will have an adverse effect on our health, but also, of course, on the function of our brain. So any compound that has anti-inflammatory effects and acts like an antioxidant is potentially a nutrient that we would want to examine for improvement in the health of the brain. The second thing that I would draw your attention to is that copper peptide stimulates the formation of blood vessels. Now, let's take a nutrient that you probably have heard of called ginkgo biloba. So ginkgo has been known for, decades as a naturally occurring nutrient or an herb that will improve blood flow. And as a result, it improves memory. Now, copper peptide, given that it can cause formation of blood vessels and improve circulation, this is another component where you would say, okay, if I can improve circulation of nutrients up to the brain, I might be able to improve cognitive function. And then lastly, the next thing that I want to draw your attention to is copper peptide as a gene regulator. Now, one of the symptoms of aging is that the gene expression is going to change. There are genes that get upregulated and genes that get downregulated, but it basically means the library of information that makes up who we are changes over time. And one of the remarkable things about copper peptide, again, discovered by Dr. Picard, is that it is very powerful gene modulator, meaning copper peptide can reset thousands of genes back to a younger, healthier state. So if we're looking at how the body changes over time and we're looking at brain function declining, if we could get those brain cells to start functioning like younger, healthier cells, obviously that is going to mean that we might be able to get better function of the brain. Now, what happens here in real life? Well, of course, if you were to take a look at this study, the conclusion is that copper peptide can play a role in improving cognitive function. But what did we find out in our own study? Okay, so for the first time, you're going to see one of the brain maps that was performed by Dr. Gaetan Chevalier. And bear in mind, Dr. Chevalier is a atomic physicist, and his specialty was in laser spectroscopy, and he was even at UCLA doing nuclear fusion research. So very, very bright guy. And when he got into biomedical research, he was interested at looking at the interaction that light would play and other forms of energy play on the human body. So it's been a wonderful working relationship with him over the years. Now, one thing I'll draw your attention to is that this study was performed on a woman 77 years of age. And that's important because we would most closely associate decline in brain function with people over the age of 50, 60, and 70. And we would normally think, okay, if someone is 70 and older, there's not really going to be an opportunity to get improvement in their brain function. But we're finding that this, in fact, is not the case. And even when people are over 60, 70, and 80, yes, you can still have restoration and improvement in brain function. So I wanted to draw that to your attention. Next, this graph right here, this image shows session 1, which is baseline. So before this woman used X39, she would be considered to be hyperactive. Session 2 shows what happens after just 3 weeks of using X39, and session 3 is after 6 weeks. Now, I'm only going to show you this one image. There's a lot more data here, but when you come to Las Vegas, you'll see the rest of it, and of course, we'll make this clinical study public after the Las Vegas event. But basically what was happening here is that her brain was going into a more calm and relaxed state, and this resulted in better brain function. So what conclusions could we draw from all of this? Well, the first thing is that regardless of your age, if you have experienced any type of decline in your brain function, you go into a mental fog. Maybe when you wake up, you feel foggy. You don't remember things as well. You don't have to live with that condition. There are many things that you can do to improve. First thing you would say is make sure you're getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep each evening, definitely over 6 hours of quality sleep. You want to make sure that you're staying well hydrated. You want to make sure that you're getting essential fats in your diet, like from fish, the omega-3s. And you also want to make sure that you're exercising on a regular basis to improve your circulation. So if you do these basic things, then adding tools like the X39 and the carnosine patch, you're going to be able to see some truly remarkable improvements in your overall health and well-being and an improvement in your brain function. So that to me is really exciting, is that, you know, as an inventor, the thought of having a decline in brain function is pretty scary to me. So I love the idea that we have real data here that shows, yes, you can protect your brain function and improve your brain function as you age. That's really exciting.